Yes, it is. It is that time again. And today we are going to talk about the Magnificent Seven, Rodney Dangerfield, and the Pretenders. All right, so what am I talking about here? You know what the Magnificent Seven is. Everybody knows what the Magnificent Seven is. I don't think too many people are super aware of just how pronounced the stock market's performance is around the Magnificent Seven, though. When you look at a comparison between the Magnificent Seven and the S&P 500, it is incredible to see the difference in performance. Now, it really gets interesting when you compare the Magnificent Seven and what I like to refer to as the mediocre 493. So what I mean by the mediocre 493 is if you take the Magnificent Seven out of the S&P 500 and you look at the S&P 500 minus the Magnificent Seven and then compare that to the trajectory of the Magnificent Seven returns, it is phenomenally different. Take a look for that yourself on a 5-year chart, and you'll see what I'm talking about. This really has kind of bifurcated the market and the performance and the way that analysts look at stocks and performance as they compare them. Because when you're comparing something in the tech sector that is really being evaluated and compared against the Magnificent Seven, it's really a different set of metrics than traditional PE ratios and things that you would use in, well, the mediocre 493. And so they still really do follow the old school kind of way of evaluating when you look at all the different sectors and consumer discretionary and everything else. But I got to tell you, I really feel like there needs to be an entirely different sector for the Magnificent Seven, because it really just breaks all the rules, and the performance there breaks all the rules, and the evaluations and the metrics that you use also break all the rules. So I think that as stock traders, we need to be cognizant of the world that we live in. We can't just bend it to our will. We have to bend to reality. And the reality is that if you're trading in those tech sectors with the Magnificent Seven and other derivatives that are very similar in that same sector, the way that you evaluate your picks, the way that you do your fundamental analysis for sure, but even in your technical analysis is different. It just has a different air to it because they move so much faster and they're so much more pronounced in their movements as opposed to the rest of the marketplace. But the title of this was also talking about Rodney Dangerfield and the Pretenders. So let's go into that a little bit too. What do I mean by Rodney Dangerfield? Well, right now, there is one, I think arguably two, but I'm not going to leave the other one for later. I'm going to tease you a little bit with that one. But there is one that is most definitely a company that should be in the Magnificent Seven that is not. And to my belief, it's just because it's had such an astronomical growth in such a short period of time, right? It's just shot up so quickly that, people are not really taking it all in yet. The stock that I'm talking about, of course, is Palantir. Palantir has had rapid ascent from the $20 level and below to where it is today in the 130s roughly. And so understanding how it's performing and how it's set up for the future and how much it is in tune with the government and utilized in a lot of the future analysis that they're doing, a lot of the Doge efforts that rely heavily on Palantir's data, I think that it is going to continue in that direction. Now, until now, and I'm just proclaiming it, in my opinion, it should be in the Magnificent Seven. But until now, I would say that, it's on the outside looking in, right? It's one of those derivatives that aligns with that. So that's what I mean when I talk about Rodney Dangerfield. Remember Rodney with the big bug eyes, right? I get no respect. Well, right now, Palantir is, they're getting some respect, but they're kind of the Rodney Dangerfield, the Magnificent Seven. They really belong there. And I think that they've got a really fantastic growth curve over the next 3 years, and something that I really love and invest pretty heavily in. All right. Now, who is the pretender? If we look at the Magnificent Seven, and we break down these different stock companies, there's lots of companies in there. There's 7 of them, right? There's Microsoft and NVIDIA and Apple and Google and Amazon and Meta for Facebook, et cetera, right? So we have these 7 core technology companies that have defined the Magnificent Seven for years. But I got to tell you, and this is a hard one for me to say because I'm sitting here with a MacBook Pro on the desktop and my Mac, my iPhone, in my hand over here. And I've also got an iPad staring at me with notes and session notes that I put on a little stand off to the side. So I am a Mac and Apple guy. I really am. And, I used to be a Windows guy all the way back in Windows 1.0, but when Windows 3.0 came out, I really transitioned into the Macintosh, and I've been there forever since, right? I'm just a hardcore Apple guy. We've got Apple TVs on all of our all of our TVs in the house. I use the Apple TV system for doing presentations. It's great to throw a screen share up on, an 85-inch TV running Apple TV and being able to hold conferences and do all of that stuff with it. I absolutely love Apple. And of all the mentors that I've followed through my career, Steve Jobs is probably the one I follow the most. Yes, I'm a trader, but I also run 4 technology companies, and I'm a SaaS, software as a service developer, right? Now, I don't write code anymore. I don't trust myself to keep a C book in the cabinet or anything like that anymore. I let other people smarter and brighter do it for me on my team, but I have an entire offshore development team in Brazil where I used to live and was a resident for 10 years and speak fluent Portuguese. So it's kind of an inside advantage that I have. My wife and family are also Brazilians, so we have a strong connection to Brazil. So I have my offshore team down in Brazil for my multiple SaaS companies. And I have followed in Steve Jobs' mantra, his approach to design and simplicity for decades at this point. I absolutely love his approach. I've gone through the biography of Steve Jobs many, many, many times. I think I've lost count, probably 6 times. And it is long. It's like 24 hours on Audible. I mean, it's crazy long. And I've gone through it 6 or 8 times at this point. I've kind of lost track. So I really admire the heck out of Apple, and I love them as a company a few years ago. Today, they're really losing their luster with me. In my opinion, I believe that Apple has transitioned out of the growth phase into just the income phase. Here's the thing. If you're in my household, you're going to be indoctrinated to Apple. We have everything Apple. All of my family members, everybody has Apple iPhones. We all have Macs and Mac Airs and iPads and everything you can imagine, right? The whole house is Apple. There's not a single Microsoft Windows device in the entire household. And so my children are growing up with Apple, and they tend to, use Apple right now, but they'll probably tend to do that and continue on being Apple users. So you have this kind of income potential of Apple, meaning that they have this large installed user base, and that will naturally kind of grow and sustain the company a little bit. As new models come out, the user base will go ahead and renew and upgrade and trade in their old Mac for a new Mac, and that's going to be fairly standard, right? It's kind of like Chevy and Ford. You're either a Chevy guy or a Ford guy or maybe a Dodge guy, but you don't like both, right? Nobody likes both. And nobody is out there that loves, Apple and then also loves Microsoft. You're typically in one camp or the other. So that has a great income potential for the stock, meaning that as they continue to grow and evolve and release new products, the mass majority of their user base is going to continue to stay loyal. And that creates loyal income, right? But I got to tell you, and I hate saying this, and I think Steve Jobs is just rolling in his grave right now. I really do. I think he's down there, with his hand over his ears, just like, God, don't even say this. But I don't think Apple could innovate their way out of a paper bag today. I just really don't. The vision of Apple is still there because it's the vision of Steve Jobs. The soul of the company is still there because it's Steve Jobs' soul. But they have lost their edge completely. They're not innovating anything. There's nothing that's coming in the pipeline that is like, oh, wow, Apple's really on top of it, right? And so part of this I can't even blame them for. I think a lot of it is just that we have had such rapid accelerated growth due to technology in the hardware sector that you start to get to a point of, well, how do you make it better from that, right? If you've used a Mac Air, some of their new generation Mac Airs with their own processors, the M series of processors, it's so light, it's so thin, it's so powerful, it's got such a long battery life. Like, how do you really innovate with that? And I get the trouble, I get the difficulty. The fact of the matter is hardware innovation is really difficult because you have to create a new paradigm. You have to introduce something that's totally, totally different. Now, maybe it's going to be the glasses, right? Maybe it's going to be where they're doing projections of TV screens inside of glasses and, Meta's in that space big time. Apple's got entries in that space. I'm not sure about Google. I don't follow Google much. Maybe they do as well. But maybe that's the next hardware innovation. But we're at a point in hardware where computers are about as light as they can get. They're about as, portable as they're going to get. Short of having a major paradigm shift in the architecture, in the hardware itself, there's just not a lot of room for innovation. It's really more of an evolution at this point, right? It's just iterative refinements and minor improvements and all of that. And so in many ways, I can't even fault Apple, okay? But the massive growth that Apple had to get to the valuation that they're at now, those days, that rapid growth, that rapid acceleration, those days are in the rearview mirror. And I really think that Apple is still a solid company to own, but I really also believe that it is transitioning out of the growth phase into just that income phase. And for those reasons, I hate to say it, Steve, please don't hate me. Please don't put any words in the afterlife into me because I love you, man. I do. I love everything you built with Apple. But you know what? These days, I got to say, Apple is becoming a pretender. If you'd like to learn more about low-stress trading and our options trading framework, go to lowstresstrading.com and sign up for our next live presentation.